The live service model of games has led to a lot of half-baked releases. A lot of games have been left forgotten, but many have also had the chance to redeem themselves. With enough post-launch support, decent content updates, and a supportive fanbase, plenty of games have gone through a redemption arc of sorts. But how does redemption work in games? In this video, we're going to establish what redemption looks like when it comes to video games and use Battlefield 2042 as the first prime example. By tracking its journey across this redemption arc, we can see where the game currently stands and what work still needs to be done. So if we're going to properly break down this arc for games, I'm going to establish a few phases. We've got the cleanup phase, cut your losses and double down, identify a supportive audience, and finally, build the game to what your audience wants. The last one might seem really self-explanatory, but because these games are essentially living and they're always being updated, it's so crucial to adjust your game based on player feedback. So the first phase of redemption in these games is what I want to call the cleanup phase. Many of these games were shipped out, sadly, in incomplete and unacceptable states, enabled by this modern live service philosophy of ship now, fix later. I don't like it either, trust me. The obvious first order of action though is to clean up these bugs and glitches and get the moment-to-moment functions of the game to what it should have been at launch. You guys remember Assassin's Creed Unity and Mass Effect Andromeda, right? Those were bad, but live service multiplayer games are almost worse when they are busted, since one buggy fuck-up can ruin the simultaneous experience of up to every player in the lobby, which in 2042's case goes up to 128 players. Beyond bugs, maybe there are other qualities or gameplay mechanics that fans of each series just couldn't get behind. In the context of 2042, it was specialists and oh boy, I get annoyed by the intro quips before each match like everyone else. Or even the lack of quality of life features that the fanbase was expecting, like a scoreboard. The cleanup phase should ideally address it as much as possible, as fast as possible, before players start leaving. And even after players leave or have left, you cannot give up on cleaning up your game. Hello, No Man's Sky. From getting the game to function reliably and as intended, to giving up certain gameplay mechanics or systems that the fanbase targeted as an issue or potentially problematic, within reason. So once all that is taken care of, the next step is what I like to call the cut its losses and double down phase. Something that Battlefield 2042 really needs to do. It's time for some soul searching. Cyberpunk 2077, which is also undergoing its own redemption journey, ended up letting go of multiplayer to focus on fleshing out the RPG systems and economy. So like 2042 can do something similar and, just take a deep look in the mirror. See if there's a commitment to the game for the long term, or if it's just going to be placed on life support until an eventual sequel. If DICE has any interest in retaining enough players, and especially if they want to harbor goodwill, they will want to commit to 2042 as much as they can. Now, assuming the game isn't just playing second fiddle to the development of a sequel, there are two important standout qualities to this phase. In plain English, I mean that this is the part where the game needs to tap into what makes the game good in the first place. For Battlefield, the way to go is by moving away from a hero shooter and getting back to the sandbox.
Tango down!
Allied troops targeting Bravo 1.
Keep in mind, this doesn't just mean delete all specialists, as much as I know all you guys in the comments would like that, but you gotta make them more similar to the tried and true class system. At the same time, games might need to abandon some of these mechanics or systems that are causing roadblocks, even if they're a big part of the original vision. Forget everything that doesn't serve the primary thing that makes a Battlefield game stand out. I'm talking about things like Breakthrough as a primary game mode, awesome destruction that affects matches in different ways, and a proper and distinct class system. On an optimistic note, for you players who might have already abandoned the game, take my word for it, it does seem that DICE has started work on both of these actions. I mean, they've cut their losses, right? Hazard Zone, I barely even know what's going on in that game mode anymore, and it seems like DICE doesn't know either. And they've poured instead all of their attention and focus into shaping all-out warfare. And another thing they've abandoned that's kind of big was they were pushing these 128 player servers all the time, but now they've kind of moved it out of the way and they're reprioritizing the classic 64-player servers, which feel really good, by the way. DICE has also doubled down on their current maps, and instead what they're doing is they're adjusting them to fit the world a bit better. They've added more cover, and they've been moving around some hopeless objectives, and those who played at launch might have noticed how clean these maps were, even with destruction, which did not fit the themes and the world of the game that was being shown off so far in cinematic trailers or descriptions. I mean, it definitely didn't seem like a huge no-pat skirmish could break out at any time. I mean, maybe a fucking janitor fight broke out here, it's so squeaky clean. But during the preview event for Season 1 a while back, I saw Kaleidoscope in a before and after scenario, and noticed DICE was adding more decayed and destroyed buildings, more cover like toppled sandbags at specific choke points, and overall giving the level a bit more life and character. Another thing they've had to double down on, which might be controversial for you guys in the comments right now, is keeping specialists. But just hear me out. I think there is a world where DICE can both cut their losses with specialists while maintaining their presence in the game. Yes, specialists are cheesy, and they all had the same dumb lines and little else to contribute. And they also just seemed incredibly at odds with the tone of the world building and lore, similar to the squeaky clean maps that were, sponsored by Clorox or whatever. And I get it. There wasn't any counterplay even for a hero system like Boris's turret, countering Sundance's wingsuit, which would have been a clear no-brainer, by the way. But okay, over time, the specialists have been tweaked. Certain specialists had their abilities reworked, like Rao and Angel. In Angel's case, his revives grant ammo, and with the quality of life updates like scoring, you have support specialists, well, actually acting like support. Seriously, support and even medic players are on point these days. Like, trust me, I'm surprised too. Now, I think specialists could stand to be adjusted a little bit more. Like, McKay still says something really dumb about wanting coffee or some shit before the game loads, but hopefully it won't be like how it was at the launch for much longer. As I said, I know a lot of you guys do not like specialists, but sadly I think they are too baked in to be fully removed at this stage, which, you know what? Maybe that's okay and we make our peace with it, because 2042 can serve a new audience alongside the players sticking it out. Kind of like Battlefield Hardline. The live service model of 2042 had committed to at least a handful more specialists revealed with each new season. And all of this was promised pre-release and before the negative feedback, so they kind of dug their hole in already. And they have mentioned that they are working on regrouping specialists back into a proper class system for Season 3, which, yes, finally, and I have my fingers crossed. Please get this right, DICE. One last quick note I want to make is highlighting how good Breakthrough is, and that it might be time for DICE to start looking at Breakthrough as its golden mode instead of Conquest, at least specifically for Battlefield 2042. The maps are so large and unwieldy at times, and it's hard to hone in on sectors without being incredibly scattered. Breakthrough cuts off so much of the randomness and combines chaos with structure, and the outcome is just pure mwah. Am I biased? Yeah, Battlefield 1's Grand Operations were some of my favorite game modes ever, and Breakthrough is basically the same mode, just without the crazy behemoths. The maps shine on this mode, and I think that they should capitalize on this. So with Phase 2, the double down and cut your losses, we're kind of past the bulk of the redemption arc, and we start to approach Phase 3. So with all the soul searching and some tough decisions being made, we are truly at a crossroads here. On the one hand, if DICE nukes everything and starts from scratch, it'll be too late in my mind. I mean, really, starting from scratch makes sense just for a sequel like Battlefield 7, and the crowd that is interested in that has most likely already left Battlefield 2042. But I mean, on the other hand, they have a formula that still attracts some people, and even newer people that aren't allergic to the idea of specialists. I mean, the game is not completely dead, I assure you. I play every now and again, a couple times a week, and lobbies are always full. The people who have stayed are playing the game, in my mind, the way that it was meant to be played, even though we're all kinda grumpy about it on the comps. To their credit, a lot of helicopter pilots are absolutely cracked out, and medics are doing their job, well, sometimes. And I'm rarely wanting for ammo or nades because support specialists are holding down the fort at choke points. When those stars align, I mean, it feels good. Because I think the most important thing we all need to consider is this. Battlefield's core gameplay is fun to many people, full stop. It's just hard to get back to the chaos when your foot touched the wall and now you can't be revived.
But it's just a fence.
I know.
It's just a fence. No, don't do this, man. Oh no.
And when that bug finally is patched, a new one takes its place that breaks all immersion. There's just so much jank and mess even after all their patches that you must be incredibly generous to overlook a lot of this. And it's just frustrating because it's a lot of fun when things don't break every other round. So the positive thing here is that DICE is starting to add more fuel to the fun fire and direct its attention to tweaking the other stuff. The limited gun pool and vehicles, they all put a cap on just how much stuff we can throw around to add to the chaos, which thankfully they're addressing that, because we're getting more weapons and better synergy between Battlefield Portal and Battlefield 2042. We could definitely use more of this, which thankfully Season 2 is doing just that. Now Season 1 and 2 are kind of the first steps, and I honestly think the new maps, they really rule. On Season 1, especially on Breakthrough, the transition from high ground to the quarry of that map to the opposing home base had a really pretty wicked cool flow. Now Season 2 seems promising as well, still falls a little short in my mind because I truly do not give a rat's ass about the new specialists, but the core specialists we've had so far, they covered enough bases, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Season 3 plays out, which seems to have finally found that middle ground by getting these specialists into true assault, recon, support, and engineer classes, as mentioned earlier. Now during our preview event for Season 2, it was nice seeing new weapons and some Battlefield Portal weapons unlockable in All-Out Warfare. The new map Stranded also seemed really cool and considered the more popular 64-player servers, because engagements felt much tighter while still giving room for the traditional Battlefield absurdity like flying a helicopter into the cargo ship. So all that was sick as hell. The Battle Pass stuff, on the other hand, I didn't really pay attention to, but that's all nice to have. And it's cool adding skins to all your stuff, but me personally, I'm playing the game to parachute into Hellfire. Whether Boris wears a Santa Claus outfit or not, it's not as important to me. So Season 1 told me that DICE might still have some spark in them, and Season 2 has some long overdue adjustments added as well. This is all a positive trend in my mind, and I'm really looking forward to Season 3. Depending on how far off Battlefield 7 will be, we could potentially have something on our hands a few seasons down the line in 2042. All of this taps into the potential for a supportive audience. People want Battlefield 2042 to be good, especially those who still play the game. Maybe the solution is by finding a completely new audience, but other games that have found redemption, they tend to identify this kind of hybrid audience that share common feelings. Destiny and Destiny 2 are probably one of the best examples of games that have redefined themselves and their audience for nearly 8 years now. At a certain point, Bungie stopped twisting its own arm to satiate the players that have left who demanded an impossible amount of content every other week, and instead they prioritized the audience that decided to stay for the new seasonal model. Sadly, you really can't win them all, but the priority needs to be the audience that is playing your game today. Once you've targeted who is playing your game still despite the rough edges and what will keep them in your game, that needs to be the next point of action. Alright, if you're with me so far, we're here now in Phase 4, which is now to build the game into something that your new audience or your hybrid audience wants. If you shape the game into what your audience is looking for, you are well on track to having a game successfully redeem itself. Battlefield 2042 just isn't quite there yet, although I really hope that they get there. At the moment, based on my own little rubric, it's more like they're still somewhere between Phase 2 and 3, and they're doubling down on their sandbox, starting to cut their losses just a little bit. But I have hope, just look at their past games. Battlefield 4 was garbage for like a whole year, right? And now it's my favorite Battlefield ever. It is worth mentioning that Battlefield 4 had the premium pass, but that's a different discussion. Now, unless DICE plans to keep this content going for another couple of years to where the game becomes worth playing in 2042, it might not be enough. Battlefield 7 is already in pre-production, although for how long remains to be seen. But if they can stay the course and focus on reworking specialists into a class system, add more tools to the sandbox chaos, and reshape the maps to fit the world a bit more, I mean, these are all serious improvements to be made for the better, and throw some more quality of life tweaks, they could have something really good here. So to summarize all this stuff neatly, for 2042 to be redeemed, it's got to clean up its act, cut some of its losses from its original vision, and prioritize what the current players want. They should double down on the elements that make the game fun and embrace that perhaps this is the time to start building some goodwill, especially if they want any of us to trust their handling of Battlefield 7. Alright guys, if you made it this far and have any ideas for what Battlefield 2042 needs to redeem itself, sound off. Also, any suggestions for other games that you love that need to be redeemed or have been redeemed? Let me know in the comments. I'm looking to make more videos just like this, and I've got a bunch of fun games I love in the pipeline ready to break down that have gone through this redemption process. For you Battlefield fans here, talk to me. Let me know if you left or have stuck it out, but are still hoping for more. If you're in the minority and love this game, speak up. I want to hear from all of you. Just keep the comments respectful, and I'll pop in and chat with you guys. Personally, when it comes to shooters, I'm neck deep in Destiny's newest season, but we've got Modern Warfare 2's beta real soon. So follow me on Twitter, sub to GameSpot, and keep an eye out for our future coverage of all things shooters right here at GameSpot. Until next time.